Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon and good evening to those in different time zones or watching later. Solidarity and shalom. Today, we're going to be talking about something that's, I think is rather interesting and oftentimes overlooked by Marxists. And that is socialism that isn't built by Marxists or non-Marxist socialism. And I believe this has manifested itself in several different ways. There's some that I am more favorable to than others, but socialism has manifested itself in material reality outside of the Marxist purview. And if you watched my last topical video on the fact that we can't define socialism, but we still can talk about it, we know that socialism, we can speak about what it is supposed to accomplish, but not its essential qualities. And if we understand what socialism is meant to accomplish, then we can understand if something existing in material reality is socialism or not. And I believe we have a lot of examples of non-Marxist socialism that have existed. Here are some that I would like to share with y'all that I believe are forms of socialism that have existed in material reality. We have African socialism, like Kwame Nkrumah. I can't pronounce his name very well, but he was the leader of Ghana and one of the founding ideologues of African socialism and Pan-Africanism. And you have people like Milton Obote and Julius Nyerere. You have a lot of different forms of African socialism. And then you have Arab socialism, like Baathism. You have Nasserism. And you have the Libyan Jamahiriya. Now, Libyan Jamahiriya is also unique because it's of an Islamic character as well. It's not a secular form of socialism. You also have non-Marxist socialism around the Nasserist movement and Pan-Arabism. Now, today, the Baathists, I do not know enough about modern Baathists to say, or enough about modern Syria to say whether or not, what the operation of their society is trying to accomplish. Though I do still support Syria and its anti-imperialist fight. The original philosophers of Baathism, like Michel Aflaq, were certainly, and the early manifestations of Baathism as a state certainly could be classified as socialist. Now, why is this important? Why is it important to talk about non-Marxist socialism? Because, as I said before, socialism isn't a set of qualities or qualifications that lead to or a set of qualifications that you have to meet to be socialist. Socialism is a class society, a transitionary phase, a new form of production, a new form of class relations. And it's historical, and as we understand it as Marxists, and that's how I understand it, its historical purpose is to eventually eliminate the need for a class society. And how does it do that? Through the solving of antagonistic contradictions. Now, what we do know about socialism that's non-Marxist is that it does solve antagonistic contradictions. It is a new form of production. It is a different class society than one that has ever come before. It's the final class society. And we know that non-Marxist socialism that has existed is socialism indeed, because not of its essential qualities, but of its operational causation. Like, what does socialism do in this place? What does the new productive forces do for this place? What do the new social relations do for this place? If they're solving antagonistic contradictions and it's a form of production that has never existed before, well, then it's obviously socialism, whether or not these people are Marxist in their approach. And even so, we can see attempts at socialism, even from anarchists, that were snuffed out, due to their own mistakes and everything like that. Non-Marxist socialism does not have a successful track record, and to be honest, it should include early Italian fascism. No, this is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. Corporatism is not a new stage of production. It's not a new class society. It's not solving antagonistic contradictions. It shouldn't be related in the slightest. And what do you mean successful track record? Because every time that socialism that's non-Marxist has existed in these places, it's been successful, but it was taken down by imperialism. I mean, it had its mistakes, obviously, but it's no less valid than what the Soviets did. I mean, what makes the Soviets so special? Their form of Marxist socialism ultimately failed. I think you're greatly misunderstanding what socialism even is, and how we talk about it here. Non-Marxist socialism still exists in places like Africa, still exists in limited forms in places like Syria. It exists in forms in places like Latin America. And these countries are existing and thriving in the 21st century. So I don't understand what your point is. Because tons of Marxist states have ultimately dissolved. And it wasn't 100% up to outside forces. It was a combination of both. Yeah, I know I'm using Marxist terms. I'm a Marxist. I understand socialism through a Marxist lens. Like I said, it doesn't matter whether the people carrying it out or organizing it are Marxists or not. It matters whether or not socialism accomplishes what it set out to do by solving antagonistic contradictions, building a new class society with a form of production that has never existed before. If it's accomplishing things like that, then as Marxists, we understand it as socialism. Just because it's built by non-Marxists doesn't mean it isn't socialism. The socialism isn't a set of qualities. Socialism is a driving force. It's a tool. It doesn't matter the shape of the vehicle. It matters where it takes you. And it matters if it can do that or not. And Marxists have failed, and non-Marxists have failed. But right now, non-Marxists are succeeding and Marxists are succeeding. You can't understand things through like the baseball team you're rooting for. You have to understand things dialectically. And I'm not talking from the perspective of utopian socialists, especially since none of them that ever carried out their utopian socialism ever built ever change the productive forces. It was always existing under the productive forces of capital. So what we do know, how we know something isn't capitalism, is that capitalism and socialism can't exist in the same space. They're an antagonistic contradiction to each other. So if socialism overcomes, we know what capitalism is. We can recognize it. It exists in material reality, and we know if it's existent or not. And if it's not existent, either production has been rolled back in a reactionary fashion to feudalism, or it has been progressed to something that has never existed before, which can only, if you understand the world through a Marxist lens, can only be socialism. So what are you talking about? You understand that Marxist ideologues don't make socialism, right? That the masses do. And the majority of the masses have no idea what Marxism is. And that these historical transformations of society are done through an organic practice. It has nothing to do with the Marxist ideologue. This is dogmatism, people, right here. This is religious dogmatism to the book of Marx. These aren't random concepts. Which is funny, because these aren't random concepts, and you admit it yourself that you've never studied them. Of course you compare Baathism and socialist Jamahiriya. See, you don't even know what Gaddafi's ideology is. You've never studied it. You don't know what you're talking about. No investigation, no right to speak. Please, GA, I like you, GA Korobov. I do, I like you, but this is wrong. You're objectively wrong. If you look at things dialectically and not dogmatically, we have to understand the world through dialectics, and that's what I'm trying to explain to you. But instead, you want to play baseball teams and dismiss ideas you obviously have never studied. So I really just recommend stepping back. The literally non-Marxist socialist states exist. They exist. And socialism isn't a set of qualities. It needs to be Marxist, blah, blah, blah. That's a liberal, Anglo-empirical way of seeing the world. It's empiricism to its core. You are assigning essential qualities to things, like saying it must be Marxist to be socialist. That is so anti-Marxist. That's so anti-Marxist. It's not dialectical. Marxism is an anti-essentialist philosophy. We think dialectically, not empirically. You have to look at things through the dialectic trend of the world. You have to understand things through their dialectic relationships and antagonistic contradictions and non-antagonistic contradictions. And once we understand the operative end goal of socialism, then we can understand what exists and has existed in material reality to be socialism. And what we find if we use dialectical materialism is that it doesn't have to be led by Marxists to have the same operative success, to have the same operative end goal. Marxists have failed. Non-Marxists have failed. They have their own method. Just because people have reached ideas that reach the same goals independently and separately of each other doesn't mean one is wrong or one is right. That's not how the world works. That's not how dialectics works. That's not how we understand things. Everything is in motion. Comrade Pinko. Oh, yeah, for sure. Sure, Marxist ideas permeate through all of these things, but people can reach conclusions without Marx. That's what I'm saying. People can reach the same conclusions as Marx without Marx. They can manifest things in a non-European. Okay, I agree. I'm a Marxist Leninist, but also we've seen success from non-Marxist Leninists. And if you don't believe that, you're delusional. Yeah, Comrade Pinko, I'll put the link in for you. Comrade Pinko is an awesome Australian comrade, and his people actually come from Australia. They're not just visitors. Oy, oy, gewollt. And I don't mean to get frustrated, Gorobov, because I like you. I do. But the problem is that oh, actually, Pinko, I'll let you on. I'm gonna do a separate stream after this and have this one sort of focused on the topic at hand. But I'll make another stream in a minute if you want to join. But what I want to end up saying is that here I'll pull you into the if you're in the back room. I just want to say, Comrade Pinko, that what are you talking about? Non-Marxist socialism exists. It's like you ignore entire millions and millions of people that are building non-Marxist socialism. That's chauvinism at its finest. You're blind by dogma, dude. You really need to stop using the words historical materialism and dialectical materialism, because you're not using it. You're not. You're parroting off dogma right now, and it's not useful. And I'm going to stop replying to it because it's really going nowhere. But Comrade Pinko, I'm going to invite you into another separate stream. Can you hear me? Jeez. I'll invite him in just for a second and tell him. Hey,
Yeah, good
I'm
day.
gonna
Yeah.
build. Yeah. I'm just gonna finish this off, and then I'm gonna start another stream. So once I get that started, I'll
No, all good. If you do another stream, you know, because I'm
yeah.
drunk as fuck right now. It's like Friday night in Australia, so I'm fucking.
Yeah, of course, that's all right. Just remember,
I just.
wait until you're an adult to drink, kids. And this is a worker here who is allowed to drink because they work fucking hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, and let's just conclude this with non-Marxist socialism exists and has been successful, and Marxist socialism has existed and been successful, and both of them have made mistakes and failed in certain aspects. And you cannot be dogmatic about how the transforming of society goes. Everything's in motion. Nothing has essential qualities. And if y'all want to join a more open discussion live stream, we're going to be doing that in a minute, and I'm going to start it up. So thank you everyone for watching. Solidarity and shalom.